Hey everybody, happy Monday. Welcome to Mondays with Matt. This is another episode of Drawing with me on Monday. Thank you to our sponsor, CIBC, for keeping all these C-SPAN episodes coming. Today, we're going to draw some sea turtles. So I thought that would be fun. I know we've gotten a lot of requests for sea turtles. And hey, sea turtles are pretty cool. So that's what we are doing. Now, I'm going to draw sea turtles in a couple of ways. The first way is going to be super simple, and it's just a top-down view. And you can make this kind of detailed or not as detailed. But just like in all of these, just grab a piece of paper and a pencil, a pen, a crayon, whatever you want. If you've got a pencil and an eraser, that's great because then you can fix your mistakes and get more details and stuff like that, but you don't have to. It doesn't really matter. And if you are drawing along with us, please remember to post your drawings in the chat below. All right, here we go. Let's start with our sea turtle top-down view. Of course, sea turtles have that famous shell, so we're going to start with that shell. And basically, what I'm going to do here is I just need to draw two sides that are about the same. And this can be tricky, actually, to line them up. We're going to try and get this about the same. There we go. I think that's pretty good. Now, there are about 7 different species of sea turtle in the world, and they all look a little bit different. So depending on which one you're drawing, this shape might be more of just an oval shape, or it might be more rounded, or if it's one of the leatherback sea turtles, it might be really big. But we're going to do kind of a generic sea turtle. Maybe this is like a loggerhead sea turtle or a green sea turtle. Now, we've got the shell, and we're going to add some more details. So let's add the head. So imagine this is our halfway point here. We want the head to come out a little ways. And so sea turtle heads come out of that shell. That shell is made, a lot of it's bone. There are backbones in here. The ribs are in there. And so for most sea turtles, that's a great way to protect themselves. So we've got our sea turtle head coming out here. There we go. And of course, you can't see too many details from the top on their head other than some of their scales, but maybe you can see a little bit of their beak and maybe their eyes here. Looks a little weird right now, doesn't it? And then I'm not going to draw in every single scale because that would be crazy, and we don't want to take that much time, but I'm going to add a couple of scales here just to kind of represent our sea turtle. Now, these scales on the head and the scales on the back are one of the ways that we can tell different sea turtles apart. So there's other characteristics that we look at, but back scales and head scales are one of the main key things that separate different species. Now, they've got flippers, and those flippers are their front flippers. So I'm going to make one come out like this, and kind of sticks out. Think of this as sort of the elbow, curves down around. There's a nice curvy line there. And then it kind of comes out from the shell here. And then I like to get this curve like that. So there's our sea turtle left fin. And then we just have to, right fin. And then we just have to imitate that on the other side. So we're going to do the same thing. Now I can make it a little bit different, but I'm going to kind of keep it pretty similar here. Get that curve in there. Ooh, that is a little bit longer. It's close enough, though. This is where that eraser comes in handy if you got an eraser. And then we're going to add the back fins on this sea turtle. Now, the back fins are not all that big, and I'm just going to do these little funny shapes here like this to represent that. This is a really simple version of a sea turtle. Now, to make this look a little bit more realistic without getting too much detail here, I'm going to add some more of these different scales on here. So on the front flippers, which, by the way, I always say the difference between sea turtles and, say, freshwater turtles, like your sliders and things like that, is that sea turtles are front-wheel drive. This is where their engine is. This is where their motor is. They're pushing through the water like this. Whereas our freshwater turtles, they have big web feet back here, and they're rear-wheel drive. For those of you that remember front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive cars, when that was a thing that was different, but I think most cars are front-wheel drive. I don't know, I'm not a car person. But anyway, we're going to add some scales here, and I'm going to add these little lines like this. They get smaller as they go down, and then maybe a couple here. And you can look at an actual sea turtle and make these really specific, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just making kind of a generic sea turtle, and I'm not that worried about it being really realistic, super realistic, or anything like that. All right, we can give his neck some wrinkles because they're their neck, they can't stick their head in their shell like some turtles can, but they can still move their neck. And so they do have some wrinkles and stuff on their neck here. Now, to do the shell itself, let me add some little scales down here too, just to give his feet or her feet a little more detail. Now, to do the scales on the back, what I like to do is there's usually like a thin layer or kind of a, I don't know what you'd call it, a column, a row. There's a line here with scales on the edge scales. That's not the technical term. The technical term of the top of the shell is called the carapace, though. Carapace on the top, plastron on the bottom. So this is the top of that carapace, and this is made up of big scales, which a word for big scales is scutes. So the turtles have lots of scutes on the back of their shell. So we're gonna make this like a loggerhead sea turtle, and we're gonna start drawing our scales kind of out like this. And again, loggerhead sea turtles have a specific number of scales, or big scales that go back, big scutes that go back. I'm not going to necessarily make that exactly like an actual one, but look at the shape I'm kind of making here. There we go. Kind of roughing this in too. There. And then on the side, they have scales that or scutes that connect here. So you can kind of connect to these points. And then along this ridge, they actually have scales there as well. So you can kind of put some lines in here if you want to get that detail. But there you go. There is our basic sea turtle. Now, if I wanted to do let's say, a green sea turtle, I would kind of do the same thing. But like I said, they have a little bit more of a rounded shell. We'll just make it, these are actually maybe bigger, a little bit bigger than loggerhead sea turtles, but we're not going to make it to scale, get it to scale anyway. Then we're going to do the same, but it's going to be pretty much the same thing. Now, one thing I should have done with this loggerhead, though, is it would have had a much bigger head. So this is not a very accurate representation in that respect. The green sea turtle has a smaller head there. Go. And then they have these, I'm going to do these fins a little bit different. They're really the same thing, but they're just in a different place right now. So the turtles just got them tucked in a little bit more. Where these, they're out wide, they're like stretched out. Not as much here. Sometimes you can't even see these little feet in the back, but we'll just put them there so you can see them. So this might be the way you would do a green sea turtle. A leatherback sea turtle is going to have more of a really long shell like this. And of course, I'm making it smaller, but this is the largest sea turtle species in the world with a body of up to 6 feet or maybe even more. But that's big, right? That's a big sea turtle. And of course, they're called leatherbacks because their shell is not bony like these other guys. Nice big sea turtle face here. And big front flippers because these guys are very pelagic, which means they're kind of open ocean animals, more so than some of the other sea turtles, which might spend a lot of time out in the open ocean, but not as much as these leatherback sea turtles. And the leatherback sea turtles, interesting thing about them is they're so big, and yet their diet consists almost exclusively of sea jellies. That's what they eat, Portuguese man-o'-war and sea jellies. And so when you hear about people talking about how dangerous plastic bags are for sea turtles because they might accidentally eat them, this is one of the turtles that can make that mistake really easily. Now, if I was going to do his shell, since they don't have these bony plates, they just have these kind of leathery lines in here. So just to give you an example, look at different sea turtles and see what the different shapes are and what they look like. And then I'll give you some different types of sea turtles to draw. If it was a hawksbill, it would have more of a jagged edge on the back, and these would be different. So draw some different sea turtles. Let us know what you're drawing, or just draw your own generic sea turtle. I'm going to flip to a new page here, and then we're going to do a little bit fancier sea turtle. And by fancy, I mean it's going to be a little cartoony, but it's also going to be a little bit more 3D. So here we go. Let me see here. Now, I like to look at references when I draw things. I think I've talked about this before. There's things I can draw from my mind, from my library I've built up, but not everything. I can only fit so much in my brain. And so I like to look at references, different pictures of things that I'm drawing. And so I'm looking at pictures of sea turtles now. I'm not going to draw exactly what I see in this case, but it's going to help me to figure out where things go. So here we go. I'm going to do, first of all, that carapace. So I'm going to do this as a big oval, but look, I'm going to do it on an angle here. So we're going to have what's called a 3/4 view, sort of the sea turtle. Now the shell, this is the top of the shell, the carapace, and then the side. But one thing that you'll notice about sea turtles, if you look at them carefully, is that their shell has kind of got a curve here and then a curve right here. And that's to accommodate their head and their front flipper, or their front fin there. And the other thing you'll notice is that their plastron, the bottom of their shell, is also sometimes visible when you have this angle. So I'm just going to put it in right now. And I'm going to stop it right there because that's where the foot's going to come out. There we go. So we got one foot. The other one, maybe we can see it a little bit if his feet are sticking way out there. And then we've got our sea turtle head here. So they have kind of a long neck and kind of comes out like this. And then I'm going to give this sea turtle a nice cartoony head here. Kind of a flat face. And then a beak. Because sea turtles don't have teeth, they have beaks. And this one's going to have a big smile. This is where it's getting a little more cartoony here. And then a little lower jaw. His neck goes in there, and we'll give him a nostril here, and we'll give him a big, pretty eye. Now, let's see. I'm going to have this sea turtle looking kind of back behind him, and just like I've done with other eyes, I'm going to make a little highlight circle here, just to give him a little bit of life. There we go. And then I'm going to draw his beak, which, if I was coloring this, I would probably shade this a little bit darker, something like that. I'm going to give him his different colored scales on the side of his face, maybe a couple on his head here like that. Maybe give a couple wrinkles in here. Our turtle's starting to come alive, but of course, our turtle still needs front flippers, right? So got to have that front wheel drive going. So I'm going to have this line come out here. One of the things I always struggle with drawing sea turtles, as you saw with the other ones, is making these flippers too long or too short. And so this is where looking at a reference can really help. You can kind of see and compare how big this flipper should be compared to the body. There's our flipper there. And then the other one, this is kind of a tricky angle because really this sea turtle's flipper would probably be kind of behind and you might not be able to see it. I'm going to cheat a little bit on that just because I think it looks better if we do it this way. And I'm going to make his other flipper coming like this so you can see it. He'd be swimming kind of weird if it really did that, but that's okay. Maybe he likes swimming weird. There we go. And then his shell is also under here. There we go. Now let's add a few more details here. So just like with our other sea turtle, I'm going to add this line that kind of just traces along the top of the carapace, like so. And then this can be a little tricky to draw in the scales on the shell since you're not looking directly down at this turtle or directly on the side. So it can be a little tricky, but the good thing is if you don't get it perfect, it's not going to be that noticeable. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try and sketch in some of these scales, large scales called scutes. And we'll bring this down. You can kind of use this as a reference. See, this line connects to this point here. Then we'll give some other lines here on the side of the shell. And we need to add some more of these big scales here, and I'm going to just color that in a little bit. Put it here. And if you are commenting on this, I can't really read this very well. I can't read the comments very well while I am doing this, but I do want you to know that every time I do one of these, I go back and I watch it, and I watch it mostly to see what you guys are saying. So I appreciate all of the feedback and suggestions, and I really, really love to see your drawings when you submit those. Get really excited about that. You make my day. go. There we go. So this is our sea turtle sort of swimming down at an angle here. We can try and do maybe another sea turtle here. Let me switch to another page. Having trouble flipping this sketchbook page. There we go. There we are. This one's not going to be super different. Let's see. Maybe I'll do this one going the other way. I'm going to do a leatherback sea turtle because I think they're so beautiful. And this one's going to be sort of swimming up towards the surface. So we're going to do the shell, but because this is a leatherback, we're making this kind of a specific species. We're going to look very carefully at the shape of that shell. It's kind of more pointy on the end. Comes up like this, and just like the bony shell, it's got the same sort of curves to it. I'm going to go over this so you guys can see it a little bit better. Now, tomorrow you can catch Tom with Tuesdays with Tom, as he likes to sing lots of cool and fun songs. So don't miss that. And later today at, I believe, 2 o'clock, Dr. Ellen Prager is going to be starting to read her book, Escape Galapagos, which is really exciting. And she's going to do, I think, several sessions, 8 sessions of that, so you can hear the entire book over the next few weeks. And what's even more exciting to me, because that's my part I'm playing in it, is I'm going to draw and do videos. They won't be live, but you can watch them, and they're going to be drawing animals from the Galapagos. I've already done the first one, and I think it's going to come out today, or definitely in the next day or so. And to accompany those, you can also find some coloring sheets. So lots of fun stuff coming up. All right, I'm going to get this big muscular flipper for this pelagic sea turtle. And then remember, we can see the plastron, the bottom of the shell a little bit here. Big leatherback face. Leatherbacks have that thing that I've mentioned before called counter shading, which, if you don't remember that, if you didn't see those episodes, that means dark on the top, light underneath, so that they can blend in with their surrounding. I'm going to make this one looking up here like this. Give them a little highlight. And I'm going to leave his other fin. Well, no, I'm not. I'm going to put it on there. Just back like this. Change my mind. And then I'm going to get these ridges in here. Now these guys are, like I said, they're dark on the top, light underneath. Sometimes they have white spots and stuff. But if I wanted to color this one or get the markings in, I would probably just shade everything in. But I'm going to try and just add some circles just to make it look a little bit more like a leatherback sea turtle, since I don't want to take too much time to shade everything in there. Little beak. There we go. There's our leatherback sea turtle. Go over this just so you guys can see it a little bit better. There we go. Nice. All right. Let's see. We have a few minutes left. So if you guys want to give me something to draw, I can try and draw something that you guys suggest, as long as I know how to draw it or can find a reference real quick. So what do we think? We have any suggestions? Kimber says a snake. You know, maybe I could do a sea snake. Let me see if I can find a picture of a sea snake real quick here. You go, well, Matt, how hard is it to draw a snake? It's just like a tube, right, with a head. But that's not really quite that simple. All right. I wanted to draw this sea snake. It's one of my favorite animals. It is called the pelagic sea snake, or yellow-bellied sea snake, since we're on that word, pelagic. But basically, snakes are kind of easy to draw and kind of hard to draw. So we've got this sort of twisty shape here. And then it's a little bit skinnier at the top. Come down here. The tricky part is getting this to, you don't want it to get real skinny and then real wide. You want to kind of even it up. So I'm kind of roughing in this line. Now, one of the cool things about sea snakes is that most of them are very well adapted for living in the ocean. And so some of them don't even really have the ability to move around on land very much at all. The pelagic sea snake or yellow-bellied sea snake is kind of like that, but they are really good at swimming. So they have a laterally compressed tail, and it's just kind of flat out here. If I can represent that there. Top of the snake here. And then we'll try and get the snake's head in here, which can be the trickiest part to draw on a snake. Pelagic sea snake has kind of a long face like this. And they are a venomous snake, but they're nothing to be worried about. They like to eat things in the ocean, and they don't bother people at all. Which is true of most snakes, really. Give them a big smile. And one of my little cartoony eyes here. Now is the fun part with the pelagic sea snake, because they have some really fun markings that make them different than other snakes. They have counter shading. There's that word again. And it starts kind of with their mouth here. It comes along the side, and we'll give them some little scale marks here. And then just comes along the top, almost like a stripe, like a thick stripe going down their back. As it gets back a little bit towards the end, though, it starts to wave a little bit. It almost becomes more of what we would call a saddle in a snake, which is a different type of marking. And then on the tail, it kind of is a saddle, these big triangles like this here. And they also start to come from the bottom as well. And then to really make this look like a yellow-bellied sea snake, I would need to shade this in. So I'm just going to give it a really, really rough shade in here. But if you're doing this at home, take your time. And they're kind of a dark blue-green almost look black on the top, though. And then they are yellow underneath. Look them up, yellow-bellied sea snake. And if you submit one and you have some color, add some color to it. Take more time than I am coloring yours. There we go. There we have our pelagic sea snake. Oh, I see somebody says barracuda. I'm going to do a real quick one because we have just like maybe a minute here, and I just saw that up there. This is one of my favorite fish to draw here. They have an underbite. I'm going to do a real cartoony barracuda here because I think I've seen this before in the comments. Just a side view. Their tail, I believe, is like this. I'm not looking at a reference, so. And they got these big teeth. Pectoral fin there. I believe they have a fin like this. I might be off on these. This is why you need to look at references, but we'll just wing it or fin it, as they say. They have these spots here. Maybe we'll do a better barracuda down the road, but there's your very quick, simple barracuda. Listen, guys, I am going to call this finished, and I want to thank you guys for watching. Thanks again to our sponsor, CIBC, for helping us do these C-SPANs. Make sure to tune in to Tom tomorrow, and make sure to tune into the Dr. Ellen Prager reading this afternoon at 2. and I'll see you guys next week.